echoes of hooves, as thousands of king's guards returned to Buckingham Palace. People had begun gathering hours before the first guards were expected, lining the wide avenues leading to Buckingham Palace. Some stood on tiptoes, others climbed onto benches, and a few held children on their shoulders so they could catch even a glimpse of what was about to unfold. There was an unmistakable buzz in the air, a mixture of anticipation, curiosity, and admiration, as if the city itself was holding its breath. The scent of freshly baked bread from nearby bakeries mixed with the faint aroma of damp cobblestones from the previous night's rain, creating a grounding, almost comforting atmosphere for those who had come to witness history in motion. The people who had gathered were diverse. Elderly couples held hands tightly, their eyes gleaming with memories of parades they had seen as children. Teenagers whispered excitedly to each other, their phones raised high, ready to record every detail. Families had packed breakfast baskets, turning the sidewalk into an impromptu picnic spot, while tourists tried to balance maps and cameras, eager to capture the spectacle before it began. Street performers, sensing the crowd's energy, played cheerful tunes on violins and flutes, their music dancing above the chatter and laughter, adding a layer of festivity to the morning. Flags waved in the hands of the spectators, fluttering gently in the breeze, their colors vibrant against the pale morning sky. It was clear that this was no ordinary day. Something monumental was about to happen, and everyone could feel it. Far away, at a staging area near Hyde Park, the King's Guards were preparing for their long-awaited return. Hundreds of men and women were meticulously checking their uniforms and equipment. The leather boots were polished to a shine, the metal buttons and insignias gleamed under the early light, and the swords, though ceremonial, were carefully inspected for perfection. Each guard had a sense of pride in their appearance. It was more than just clothing. It was a symbol of their commitment, their discipline, and their connection to a tradition that spanned centuries. Sergeant Thomas Whitaker, a man whose presence commanded respect, walked among them, his eyes scanning each soldier with a mixture of pride and reassurance. He adjusted a shoulder strap here, straightened a helmet there, offering quiet words of encouragement to those whose nerves betrayed them. The horses were the next focus. These majestic animals, symbols of strength and grace, were being led out one by one. Their coats shimmered, groomed to perfection, and each one seemed aware of the importance of the moment. Some nudged their handlers affectionately, while others stamped their hooves in mild impatience, sensing the excitement in the air. The bond between the guards and their horses was evident. Hours of training together had created a deep trust. Private Eleanor Hughes gently patted her horse, murmuring calming words as she adjusted the reins. She had spent months away from her family, and the small, familiar gestures of preparing her horse felt grounding and reassuring. Nearby, Captain Richard Ellis helped a younger guard mount, steadying the horse and giving tips on posture and balance. There was a quiet camaraderie, a shared understanding that today's journey was about more than a parade. It was a homecoming, a return to a place and people that held meaning beyond duty. As the final preparations were completed, the guards formed up into lines, their ranks stretching as far as the eye could see. The sunlight reflected off their polished helmets, creating a dazzling display of gold and silver that seemed almost unreal. The horses shifted in their positions, snorting softly, and the guards took a deep collective breath, steadying themselves. For a moment, there was a profound silence, as if the entire world paused in respect for what was about to unfold. Then, like the first note of a great symphony, the sound of hooves began. 1, 2, 3, a steady rhythm that soon grew into a thunderous chorus as thousands of guards and horses began to move together. The echoes bounced off the buildings, filling the streets with a sound that was both powerful and reverent. It was impossible not to feel the weight of history in that moment, to sense the continuity of generations of guards who had marched these same streets, under these same skies. The crowd responded instinctively. Children clutched their parents' hands, their eyes wide with wonder, while adults whispered to each other, pointing out details like the precision of the formations or the elegance of the horses' movements. Cameras clicked and phones recorded, but even technology could not fully capture the atmosphere. It was as much about feeling as it was about seeing. The vibrations in the chest from the pounding hooves, the almost ceremonial silence between moments of sound. and the knowledge that everyone present was witnessing something rare and special. Street vendors watched quietly, their usual calls replaced by awe as the guards passed by, and even birds seemed to pause mid-flight, as if acknowledging the significance of the procession. Sergeant Whitaker led the first division, sitting tall and unwavering. His face, though calm, reflected the pride he felt in guiding this remarkable return. Each movement was deliberate, precise, and commanding. Behind him, the younger guards mirrored his posture and determination, their eyes forward, their bodies moving in unison. The discipline was mesmerizing, a reminder that years of training, strict routines, and unwavering commitment had led to this exact moment. Yet despite the formality, there was warmth in the air, a shared sense of purpose, a silent acknowledgement among the guards that they were returning not just to a palace, but to their families, friends, and the city that had awaited them. Private Hughes allowed herself a small smile as she passed a familiar landmark, a shop she used to visit with her mother on weekends. Memories flashed through her mind, laughter, small adventures, and the comfort of home, and she felt a renewed sense of connection to the city she had protected from afar. Captain Ellis noticed a similar reaction in one of the younger guards, who momentarily seemed lost in thought, and he gave a reassuring nod. The journey was not just a physical one. It was emotional, a gentle reminder that duty and personal history were intertwined, and that the return to Buckingham Palace was as much about the human heart as it was about ceremonial tradition. As the procession continued, the crowd's energy shifted from anticipation to admiration. People began to clap in rhythm with the hooves, some joined in spontaneous cheers, and children waved small flags with increasing enthusiasm. The guards, though focused on their formation, could sense the response, and it seemed to lift their spirits. There was an invisible connection, a silent dialogue between those who served and those who watched, a recognition of sacrifice, respect, and the collective pride of a nation. For many in the crowd, it was a moment of inspiration, a reminder that dedication and loyalty still had a visible, tangible presence in the world, and that the echoes of history could still resonate loudly in modern life. Hours of practice, months of duty, and years of tradition had all led to this single morning. Each guard, each horse, each sound of hooves was part of a larger story, a story that transcended the individual and touched the entire city. Sergeant Whitaker, riding at the front, felt the weight of responsibility, but also a deep satisfaction. Every command given, every drill practiced, every early morning and long night had prepared them for this precise moment. And as the sunlight climbed higher, casting long shadows across the streets and illuminating the gleaming helmets, there was a sense that this was not just a return, but a celebration of continuity, of honor, and of a shared journey between the king's guards and the people they had sworn to serve. By the time the first glimpses of Buckingham Palace came into view, the echoes of the hooves had become a steady heartbeat, resonating through every building, every person, and every corner of the avenue. The palace gates, tall and ornate, stood like silent witnesses to centuries of history, ready to welcome back the guardians who had been away for so long. And as the crowd pressed forward slightly, craning their necks to see, it was clear that this was more than a parade. It was a homecoming, a living symbol of duty, dedication, and the enduring spirit of service that connected the king's guards to the heart of the nation. As the procession moved steadily through the streets of London, the rhythm of hooves continued to echo like a heartbeat across the city. The grandeur of the moment was undeniable, but beyond the uniforms and the precise formations, there were countless stories hidden behind each polished helmet and shining sword. Every guard had a journey, a life shaped by discipline, sacrifice, and personal struggle. While the spectators admired the spectacle on the surface, they could not yet see the human stories that had led to this magnificent return. Private Eleanor Hughes, riding her horse Whisper, reflected on her own journey. Eleanor was only 22, but she had already faced challenges that many people would struggle to imagine. When she first joined the King's Guards, she had left behind a newborn child, entrusted to the care of her parents. The separation had been painful, filled with sleepless nights and quiet moments of longing. Yet she knew that her duty required sacrifice, and she had poured herself into training and service with determination. Now, as she marched through the city streets, every step felt like a triumph, not just of discipline, but of personal endurance and courage. She glanced at her fellow guards, noticing the same mixture of pride and quiet exhaustion reflected in their eyes. Captain Richard Ellis, a man in his early 40s, led one of the divisions that followed behind a leaner. He had spent months away from his family, often stationed in challenging conditions where every day brought new obstacles. Rain-soaked nights, muddy training grounds, and early mornings had tested him physically and mentally. Yet he had also found moments of unexpected joy. Camaraderie with his fellow guards, quiet conversations that stretched into the night, and the comforting knowledge that he was part of a lineage that went back generations. Today, as he rode, he could feel the tension of those months beginning to dissolve. The city's cheers, the waving flags, and the familiar streets of London welcomed them back, creating a bridge between duty and homecoming. The younger guards, many in their first year of service, were discovering the weight of tradition and the pride it carried. They had been trained to move as one, to carry themselves with poise and authority, yet beneath the surface, they were discovering the emotional depth of their role. One young man, Thomas Green, barely 18, had initially joined out of admiration for the historic parades and the prestige of the uniform. Now, riding alongside seasoned veterans, he realized that being a guard meant more than appearances. It meant responsibility, resilience, and understanding the significance of every action. His nerves had transformed into a quiet focus, his heart swelling with pride as the rhythmic echo of hooves guided him forward. Beyond personal reflection, there were also moments of quiet connection among the guards themselves. The journey through London had become a moving tapestry of human experience. Some guards whispered encouragement to one another, sharing simple words that carried deep meaning. Others offered small gestures of comfort, a reassuring pat on the shoulder, a soft laugh at a minor mistake, a nod that said, "We are in this together." For many, the journey was as much about comradeship as it was about returning to the palace. The bonds forged during months of shared duty, training, and challenge now manifested in subtle, unspoken ways that strengthened the unity of the procession. As the march continued, Alina noticed a small group of children along the sidewalk, wide-eyed and waving homemade flags. She couldn't help but smile, thinking of the innocence and curiosity reflected in their faces. One little girl held a drawing she had made of a horse and guard, trembling slightly as she waved it. Alina felt a deep sense of connection, realizing that these moments of inspiration, no matter how brief, were part of what made her service meaningful. She gave a slight wave back, and the girl's eyes lit up in delight. It was a reminder that the public's admiration was not just for ceremony. It was for dedication, for sacrifice, and for the human effort that sustained traditions older than most could remember. Captain Ellis noticed a small commotion ahead, where an elderly man had collapsed from the excitement and the crowd's density. Guards quickly adjusted their positions, forming a protective space around the man, while others called for medical assistance. The efficiency and calmness of the response reflected their training, but also their empathy. They were not only performing a ceremonial duty, they were guardians of the people, ready to protect and serve in every sense. The crowd, too, watched in awe as the incident was handled seamlessly, a quiet reminder that beneath the formality and spectacle lay genuine responsibility and care. As they passed notable landmarks, the ornate facades of historic buildings, the familiar bridge spanning the Thames, and the bustling squares filled with morning activity, the scenery triggered memories and reflections among the guards. For some, it reminded them of childhood visits with parents and grandparents. For others, it recalled previous parades and training exercises that had tested their endurance and patience. Sergeant Whitaker, at the front, noticed the fleeting glances of reflection in the eyes of his team. He knew that part of their strength came from the ability to carry both personal memory and collective purpose simultaneously. Each step forward was a testament to their resilience and dedication. Among the crowd, ordinary citizens began sharing their own stories. A mother told her son about her father, who had served as a guard decades ago, pointing out the continuity of tradition. Tourists compared notes, amazed at the precision and scale of the march, while local shopkeepers paused from their work to wave and cheer. It was a rare moment when history, present, and future seemed to meet, and the air was filled with a shared sense of pride and wonder. Even those who had once felt distant from royal ceremonies found themselves drawn into the emotion of the event. swept along by the rhythm of hooves, the gleam of polished armor, and the unmistakable presence of human dedication. For many guards, the journey was also a time for quiet introspection. Elinor thought about the nights spent away from home, the longing for familiar voices, the reassurance of letters from family. Private Green remembered the encouragement of his older brother, who had served before him, and the way those words had guided him through moments of doubt. Captain Ellis reflected on the friendships forged over shared meals in distant posts, on conversations that turned into lessons in patience, perseverance, and humility. Each memory carried weight, yet each also reinforced the honor and purpose of being part of this extraordinary institution. As the procession approached more crowded areas, the city seemed to lean in closer. People stepped out from behind buildings and lampposts. Children ran ahead to catch glimpses, and the cheer grew louder with each passing moment. The guards maintained their composure, moving with synchronized precision, yet there was a subtle energy that seemed to flow between the spectators and those in uniform. The march became not only a display of discipline, but also a shared human experience, connecting strangers through admiration, respect, and the beauty of a tradition lived fully in the present. The horses themselves were not mere instruments of pageantry, they were partners in the journey. Whisper Elinor's horse moved with steady grace, sensing her emotions and reflecting them in small gestures. A soft nudge when Elinor adjusted her posture, a gentle step to keep pace with neighboring horses. Other animals displayed similar awareness, their movements perfectly in sync with the rhythm of hooves and commands of their riders. The trust between horse and guard, built over months of training and care, was visible in every step, every turn, every coordinated movement. It was a silent testament to dedication, patience, and the quiet strength of partnership. By mid-morning, the guards had already covered a significant distance, yet the sense of unity and purpose remained strong. Sergeant Whitaker rode at the front, occasionally scanning the horizon, ensuring formations remained intact and morale stayed high. The younger guards looked to him not only for guidance but also for reassurance. His calm confidence had a ripple effect, instilling focus and pride in those around him. Small gestures, a nod, a slight smile, a quiet word of encouragement, strengthened the cohesion of the ranks, and each guard understood the importance of their role within the larger whole. Alongside the official duties and disciplined formations, there were fleeting moments of human warmth. Guards exchanged quick smiles, whispered jokes, and light-hearted gestures that reminded them of their humanity. Elinor caught a glimpse of Private Green trying to steady a nervous horse, and she offered a quiet laugh and a helpful tip. Captain Ellis adjusted a loose strap on another's uniform and shared a knowing nod. These small, seemingly insignificant interactions strengthened bonds and reminded everyone that the grandeur of the march was not only an appearance, but in the shared experiences, mutual support, and silent understanding between comrades. As the streets of London stretched ahead, filled with cheering citizens, the significance of the journey became more apparent. It was not just a return to Buckingham Palace. It was a celebration of sacrifice, resilience, and dedication. Every face in the crowd, every horse in the formation, every polished helmet told a story of effort and commitment. And though the event was ceremonial in nature, it resonated deeply with those who had witnessed it. A moving reminder that tradition lives not just in objects or rituals, but in the people who carry them forward with pride, honor, and heart. By the time the guards reached the central square, the energy in the air had reached a crescendo. Families waved, children shouted in excitement, and citizens clapped in rhythm with the echoing hooves. Elinor allowed herself a small, private moment of pride, thinking of her child and family waiting for her, and of all the personal sacrifices that had led to this moment. Captain Ellis, observing the reactions of the crowd, felt a swell of gratitude for his team, for the people of the city, and for the rare opportunity to participate in a tradition that connected generations through shared service and respect. The procession continued, each step a testament to endurance, each turn a celebration of human spirit, and each cheer from the crowd a reminder that the King's Guards were not just ceremonial figures. They were living symbols of dedication, unity, and the powerful bond between a nation and those who served it. As the march pressed onward, the human stories behind the armor, the quiet courage, the personal sacrifices, and the unwavering commitment shone through, leaving a lasting impression on everyone who witnessed the event. The closer the king's guards came to Buckingham Palace, the more palpable the energy in the air became. The streets were alive with excitement, a living river of people who had waited for this moment for hours. Every corner was filled with spectators, their voices blending into a rising chorus of anticipation. The echo of hooves, once steady and rhythmic, now seemed to carry a deeper resonance, reverberating with the emotions of the guards, the horses, and the crowd alike. It was as if the city itself had joined in the march, breathing alongside them, counting every step. Sergeant Thomas Whitaker noticed a subtle shift among the guards. The initial excitement had given way to a quieter, more reflective energy. Some guards were scanning the crowd for familiar faces, hoping to catch a glimpse of loved ones who had come to witness their return. Private Eleanor Hughes felt a flutter in her chest, thinking of her child waiting at home, imagining the reunion she would have once this long journey ended. Even Captain Richard Ellis, whose years of service had taught him to maintain a composed exterior, felt a lump in his throat as he recognized the significance of this homecoming. It was not merely a ceremonial return. It was an emotional reunion, a moment when duty and personal longing converged in a shared human experience. The crowd, sensing the approach of Buckingham Palace, grew louder. Children's laughter rang out, mingling with the steady clatter of hooves. Elderly citizens waved handkerchiefs and small flags, their eyes glistening with tears of pride. Families leaned over railings, hoping to see a loved one among the sea of guards, while tourists attempted to capture the spectacle with cameras. Yet no lens could truly convey the magnitude of what was unfolding. For the people of London, it was a moment that transcended time, a chance to witness history in motion, to feel connected to centuries of tradition, and to honor the dedication of those who served. As the guards neared the palace gates, Sergeant Whitaker signaled a slight adjustment in formation. The precision required at this stage was immense. The streets narrowed, and the crowd pressed closer. Horses moved with careful grace, their hooves striking the pavement in perfect rhythm. Every guard was alert, maintaining posture and discipline, yet beneath the disciplined exterior, emotions ran deep. Eleanor glanced at her fellow guards, noting their shared determination and quiet excitement. Each person carried their own story, a unique blend of sacrifice, endurance, and loyalty. These stories, though often unspoken, were visible in the way they held themselves, the subtle nods exchanged, and the glimmers of emotion in their eyes. Private Green, the young guard who had once been nervous and inexperienced, now felt a profound sense of confidence. The months of training, the long hours of duty, and the countless drills had all prepared him for this moment. Riding through the streets, he felt a mixture of pride, relief, and awe. He noticed a small child in the crowd waving frantically and gave a subtle wave in return. The child's face lit up, and Green realized the power of such small gestures. Being a king's guard was about more than ceremony. It was about connection, inspiration, and the ability to move people in ways that words alone could not. Captain Ellis, riding beside Green, reflected on the journey that had brought them here. Each guard had faced challenges: early mornings, long periods away from family, the physical and mental demands of service. But all those hardships had culminated in this singular, extraordinary moment. As he scanned the crowd, he saw parents holding children, young couples pointing excitedly, and elderly citizens shedding tears of pride. Each reaction was a testament to the importance of their work, the value of discipline, and the respect commanded by those who dedicate themselves to a higher purpose. He felt a deep sense of gratitude, not only for the crowd's appreciation, but also for the privilege of serving alongside such committed individuals. The streets immediately surrounding Buckingham Palace became the most intense point of focus. Guards moved carefully to maintain formation, their eyes sharp and attentive. Spectators leaned forward, straining to see, while photographers adjusted lenses to capture the moment. The palace, with its grand gates and towering facades, seemed to shimmer in the morning light, as if it, too, recognized the importance of the return. The guards could feel the weight of history pressing in from all sides. Generations of predecessors had marched these same streets, participated in these same ceremonies, and upheld the traditions that now rested in their hands. The realization was humbling, yet it filled them with pride. Amid the formal display, moments of personal emotion began to surface more visibly. Elinor spotted a young boy in the crowd holding a drawing of a horse and guard, trembling slightly as he waved it. She offered a small smile and a gentle wave back, feeling a surge of warmth and connection. Green, too, noticed the simple joys of these interactions, the way a tiny gesture could lift spirits and reinforce purpose. Even the horses seemed to sense the heightened emotions, moving with a grace that reflected the significance of the moment. Whisper, Elinor's horse, responded subtly to her mood, matching her measured movements and offering a reassuring presence. As they approached the palace gates, a hush seemed to fall over the crowd. The thunder of hooves became softer, yet each step carried more weight. The guards adjusted their pace, mindful of the need for precision and decorum. Sergeant Whitaker maintained a calm, commanding presence, guiding the procession with practiced ease. The younger guards, inspired by his example, mirrored his composure and focus. Even as excitement threatened to overwhelm them, the discipline ingrained through months of training kept them steady, elegant, and unified. Then, a remarkable moment occurred. From a distance, a few families spotted their loved ones within the ranks. Mothers, fathers, and siblings waved frantically, their eyes wide with recognition. Guards spotted the familiar faces, their own expressions softening. Private Elinor Hughes felt a surge of emotion as she glimpsed her parents among the crowd, waving with tears in their eyes. The months of separation, the countless early mornings, the sacrifices endured, all of it crystallized in this fleeting, powerful moment. Captain Ellis observed the scene and felt a lump form in his throat. It was not simply a ceremonial return. It was a reunion, a tangible bridge between service and family, between duty and personal life. The crowd reacted instinctively. A wave of applause and cheers surged forward, enveloping the guards and creating a sensation that was almost tangible. Children waved their flags, excited to see heroes up close, while adults clapped and shouted words of encouragement. Elderly spectators nodded, some silently, some aloud, recognizing the dedication and courage on display. The human response amplified the emotional resonance of the moment, transforming the march into a living, breathing celebration of connection, loyalty, and shared pride. Sergeant Whitaker guided the guards carefully through the final stretch, ensuring that formation remained perfect despite the intensity of the moment. Horses responded to subtle cues, maintaining their disciplined rhythm, while the guards balanced pride, emotion, and focus. Every detail mattered, every step, every gesture, every glance carried significance. It was a delicate balance, requiring strength, poise, and the kind of teamwork forged through months of shared experience. Yet amid the precision and ceremony, the personal narratives of sacrifice and dedication shone through. Elinor allowed herself another glance at her parents, catching the tears in her mother's eyes. She felt a swell of emotion, a mixture of relief, pride, and gratitude. It was a reminder that every challenge faced during her service had led to this moment, a moment of human connection, recognition, and love. Green, observing the reactions of the crowd and the subtle gestures of his fellow guards, felt a similar surge. The combination of personal sacrifice, professional pride, and shared humanity created an atmosphere that was almost overwhelming in its intensity. Captain Ellis reflected on the collective experience. Each guard, each horse, each spectator was a part of something larger than themselves. The return to Buckingham Palace was not merely a formal event. It was a living narrative of history, service, and human emotion. The echoes of hooves, once rhythmic and ceremonial, now seemed to carry stories, tales of perseverance, resilience, and dedication that spanned years, even generations. Every member of the procession understood, in that quiet yet profound way, that they were part of a tradition that connected the past with the present and inspired the future. As the palace gates came into clear view, the crowd grew even more animated. Children waved their flags vigorously, shouting greetings and names, while adults leaned forward with eager anticipation. The king's guards maintained their composure, yet there was a subtle lightness in their steps, a recognition that the culmination of their journey was near. Elinor glanced at Green, noticing the quiet confidence and pride in his eyes. The young guard had matured in ways that only such a journey could inspire. The experience of discipline, sacrifice, and connection had transformed him, and now, like the rest of the guards, he was about to be recognized for both service and humanity. Finally, The procession reached the threshold of Buckingham Palace. The gates loomed ahead, tall and majestic, framed by the familiar stone facades that had stood witness to centuries of history. The guards slowed, their hooves striking the pavement with careful precision. The crowd held its breath, captivated by the blend of discipline, emotion, and anticipation. Sergeant Whittaker led the final approach, his posture unyielding yet human, a symbol of the strength and dedication that defined the King's Guards. Every member of the procession felt the weight of the moment, the responsibility, the pride, and the emotional resonance of returning home. As the guards passed through the gates and entered the palace courtyard, a sense of completion and fulfillment washed over them. The months of separation, the challenges faced, and the personal sacrifices had all led to this single, extraordinary moment. Families and friends in the crowd cheered, some shedding tears of joy and relief. Children waved and shouted, creating a melody of happiness that complemented the echo of hooves. For the guards, it was not just the end of a march, it was a recognition of service, a celebration of commitment, and a reminder that human dedication, courage, and sacrifice were honored and remembered. As the King's Guards passed through the massive gates of Buckingham Palace, the crowd erupted into cheers and applause that echoed across the courtyard. The rhythmic sound of hooves softened, replaced by a hum of excitement and joy. For the guards, the final moments of the journey were filled with a mixture of pride, relief, and deep emotional satisfaction. They had marched miles through the streets of London, carried the weight of tradition, and returned not just as ceremonial figures, but as individuals who had sacrificed, endured, and served with unwavering commitment. Every guard felt a quiet sense of triumph, knowing that this homecoming represented the culmination of their efforts and the recognition of their dedication. Sergeant Thomas Whittaker guided his division to their designated positions within the palace courtyard. His posture remained disciplined and commanding, yet there was a subtle lightness in his step, a reflection of the collective pride shared among the guards. Behind him, Private Eleanor Hughes felt a surge of relief and joy as she dismounted from Whisper, carefully patting the horse's neck to express gratitude for its steady partnership. Months of service, long nights away from family, and countless personal sacrifices had brought her to this moment. As she looked around, she noticed the faces of fellow guards, their expressions a mirror of her own emotions, pride, accomplishment, and a deep sense of belonging. Captain Richard Ellis moved through the ranks, offering quiet words of encouragement and congratulations. The younger guards, many of whom had never experienced a return of such magnitude, looked up to him with admiration. They had learned much during their months of service: discipline, patience, resilience, and the importance of working together as a cohesive unit. Now, as they stood in the courtyard, they could see the results of their efforts: the gleaming helmets, polished boots, perfectly synchronized formations, and understand that their training had not been in vain. This was a moment of acknowledgement, a rare chance to feel the full weight of history and tradition while also celebrating personal achievement. The crowd outside the gates continued to cheer, their voices carrying into the courtyard and mingling with the soft clatter of equipment and the low murmur of the guards. Families waved, children jumped with excitement, and elderly citizens clapped with hands worn by time yet full of enthusiasm. Each cheer, each wave, each shout of encouragement was a reminder to the guards that their service mattered not only within the walls of Buckingham Palace, but also to the hearts of the people they protected. Private Green, the young guard who had grown from nervous recruit to confident marcher, caught sight of a small child holding a homemade flag. The child's wide smile and eager waves reminded him why this service was important, not for glory, but for connection, for the pride of inspiring others, and for being a visible symbol of dedication and integrity. As the guards settled into their positions, the courtyard transformed into a stage for ceremonial honor. The horses were guided carefully to their stables, still calm and composed despite the excitement around them. Whisper, Eleanor's faithful companion, stood patiently as she ensured the reins were secure and the saddle properly removed. The bond between guard and horse, nurtured over months of training and shared experience, was evident in these quiet moments. Each animal had played a critical role in the return, carrying its rider with grace, strength, and reliability. Their partnership with the guards reflected the trust, care, and mutual respect that define this unique profession, reminding everyone that dedication extended beyond human effort alone. At the balcony of Buckingham Palace, the king appeared, acknowledging the return of the guards with a respectful nod and a warm smile. The guards straightened their posture, their eyes forward, and their hearts swelling with a sense of accomplishment. This acknowledgement was more than ceremonial. It was a recognition of sacrifice, loyalty, and duty performed without expectation of personal reward. The king's presence reinforced the bond between the monarchy and those who served it, a tangible reminder of the continuity of history and the significance of the guards' work. Families of the guards, who had waited for months to see their loved ones, were now allowed to enter the courtyard. Emotional reunions unfolded everywhere, tears were shed, embraces exchanged, and laughter rang out amid the echoes of past months of separation. Eleanor's parents approached her cautiously, overwhelmed by pride and emotion. They embraced tightly, whispering words of love and gratitude. The months of longing and uncertainty dissolved in that moment, replaced by a sense of wholeness and joy. Private Green experienced a similar reunion with his family, his younger siblings clinging to him, marveling at the uniform and the disciplined poise he now embodied. For many guards, these reunions provided a deeply personal resolution, a reminder that their dedication had tangible meaning in the lives of those they loved. The guards then participated in the ceremonial salute, a synchronized display of discipline and respect. Swords were lifted, boots aligned, and heads held high as a symbol of unity and honor. The crowd observed in awe, recognizing the culmination of months of effort, training, and service. Each movement, precise and deliberate, was a reflection of countless hours of preparation and a demonstration of the commitment required to maintain centuries-old traditions. The echo of swords, the glint of polished metal, and the quiet discipline of the guards reinforced the solemnity and grandeur of the occasion. Beyond the ceremony, there were quiet moments of reflection. Captain Ellis walked slowly through the ranks, observing the faces of his team. He saw pride, relief, and a deep sense of satisfaction reflected in their expressions. Each guard carried stories untold, stories of personal sacrifice, long nights of duty, and the small victories that had kept them going. Eleanor, standing beside him, thought about the months spent away from home, the challenges she had faced, and the joy of finally being reunited with her family. Private Green considered the transformation he had undergone, from an inexperienced young recruit to a confident guard who now understood the profound responsibilities and rewards of service. These personal reflections added depth to the ceremonial display, reminding everyone that the grandeur of the event was matched by the humanity behind it. The crowd outside remained deeply engaged, witnessing the intricate balance between discipline and emotion. Children waved enthusiastically, shouting greetings and cheers, while adults clapped and shared stories about their own experiences of service or admiration for tradition. Elderly citizens nodded knowingly, recalling their own memories of similar events and feeling the weight of continuity and heritage. The interaction between the guards and the public created a shared experience, where history, service, and human emotion intersected. For many, it was a moment of inspiration, a reminder that dedication, courage, and discipline could create a legacy that touched countless lives. As the ceremony concluded, the king approached the guards, offering words of acknowledgement and praise. His presence, calm yet commanding, conveyed gratitude and respect for the months of service, personal sacrifices, and unwavering commitment. Each guard responded with disciplined acknowledgement, a nod, or a subtle gesture of respect. The recognition from the monarchy was profound, not only validating their efforts, but also reinforcing the importance of tradition, honor, and the bonds between those who serve and the nation they protect. The final moments of the day were filled with joy and quiet reflection. Guards began to mingle with family members, sharing stories of their experiences and savoring the relief of reunion. The courtyard, once a stage of formal discipline, transformed into a space of warmth, connection, and celebration. Eleanor walked with her parents, recounting experiences from her time away and listening to their stories of waiting and anticipation. Private Green held his younger siblings' hands, sharing the small victories and challenges he had faced. Captain Ellis engaged in conversation with his team, reflecting on the journey and offering words of encouragement for future endeavors. These interactions reinforced the human dimension of service, reminding everyone that behind every uniform was a story of courage, perseverance, and dedication. As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue across the palace, a sense of calm settled over the courtyard. The guards, their duties momentarily complete, took a collective breath. The streets had been traversed, the crowd had been inspired, and the traditions had been upheld. The echoes of hooves that had once commanded attention now lingered softly in memory, leaving a lasting impression on all who had witnessed the return. Sergeant Whitaker looked across the courtyard, noting the pride, unity, and satisfaction reflected in every face. He understood that this day was not just an event. It was a testament to human dedication, the power of tradition, and the enduring strength of shared purpose. Even as the guards prepared to disperse for rest and reunion with family, the spirit of the day lingered. Children continued to wave, tourists captured final photographs, and locals shared stories of the experience with neighbors and friends. The city had been touched by more than ceremony. It had witnessed the living embodiment of honor, discipline, and human connection. The return to Buckingham Palace would be remembered not just for its pageantry, but for the profound emotions, personal sacrifices, and shared joy that accompanied every step, every hoofbeat, and every smile exchanged. By the evening, as the palace gates closed behind the last of the guards, the echoes of the day remained in the hearts of all present. Families carried their loved ones home, still talking about the events they had seen. Guards rested, knowing that they had fulfilled not only their duty but also a greater purpose: to inspire, to connect, and to uphold a tradition that bridged the past, present, and future. The sound of hooves may have faded, but the impact of their return, pride, dedication, and human stories would resonate for generations. Buckingham Palace stood majestic and serene, a witness to history, honor, and the living testament of the King's Guards.